Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Media Show. I'm your host, Nick Palavita, and today we have a very exciting topic. We're going to be discussing the new law in Texas relating to social media generally, which basically says that that social media companies are not allowed to ban people talking because of politics. And so with that, we're going to bring in our special guest for today. First of all, we're going to introduce this gentleman who's the former actually the current co-author of a really good book called Richer Than a Millionaire, and also a co-author of the book The Millionaire Next Door, a professor of marketing at State University of New York at Albany. Let's bring in Bill Danko. Bill, welcome to the show.
Great. Thank you, Nick.
We're going to have a very interesting topic regarding the state of Texas. With that, we need to bring some smart people on. So I found a real smart guy. This guy actually is, you can look at the Wikipedia page, but one of the smartest people in the United States of America, if not the world. Let's bring in our high IQ person, Rick Rosner. Rick, welcome to the show.
Well, IQ is not intelligence. In my case, it's just desperation to have some kind of thing to brag about.
Well, it is. I was going to bring you on, but it's an hour earlier. The one I just got off, David Walker, former Comptroller General of the United States, to talk about economics. And people in Washington, D.C. do need some smart people because they're really smart, surrounded by people that aren't that smart, I think. So maybe, but you have to get up an hour earlier, and you're in L.A. And I was going, well, do you really want to get up an hour early to listen to economics talk? I don't know, Rick.
Well, I got up early because I got a package coming and I need to be awake so it doesn't get stolen off my porch.
Oh, okay. Well, that's an important reason. Okay, but we are going to be discussing a Texas law that said social media is not allowed to throw you off their TV show because you're talking about political things that they disagree with. With that, we need to bring in a couple lawyers. So this guy, actually the former associate dean of the University of South Dakota School of Law. Let's bring in Dan Worthington. Dan, welcome to the show, the Media Show. We're going to be discussing, how media can, social media networks can throw you off. And we've been thrown off a lot of media, so I'm kind of used to it. Although right now we have our own TV channel on Roku. So currently, they can't throw us off, and we're up to 50,000 views already. It started small, but it's just like going straight up like a rocket. And I felt really good because with 50,000 views, we beat CNN Plus that only had 10,000. And they went out of business after spending $300 million. And I'm going, okay, good. We're heading in the right direction. But I will let people know once we hit 500,000 views. I'll keep everybody informed about how we're doing on our Roku network. Now, with this, we have another attorney we're going to bring in. He's a little shy. He went to the University of Southern California for his bachelor's degree, went to The Ohio State University for his law degree, and his master's in law from New York University. He's actually a professor at Georgia College. Let's bring back Adam Lamparero. Adam, welcome back to the show, the Media Show. He's also a very famous person on Lawyer's Den and loves to discuss Roe versus Wade. So in the middle of this, he may go, why don't we discuss Roe versus Wade? By the way, the Roe versus Wade show is running on the Roku network for people who are interested in listening to it. The last discussion of Roe versus Wade, which is kind of interesting. But we can discuss Roe versus Wade, Adam. But right now, we'd like to discuss this new law that's placed in Texas that social media companies cannot ban us from discussing political viewpoints. So we'll start with you, Adam, since I know you're shy and we want to bring you out a little bit. What are your thoughts about this new law in Texas? Adam, you need your mic on. I still can't hear you. Hey, Adam, maybe he's been banned.
Could be.
Maybe they already got to us already. Okay, so we'll start with Dan Worthington, since you're an attorney, until he gets his either microphone fixed or disbanded, but obviously you're out there. What are your thoughts about this law? Social media sites cannot shut us down because we talk about politics. We've been shut down before because we discussed COVID, believe it or not. Facebook shut us down for a week just discussing COVID. So what are your thoughts about this?
Texas it's interesting that as we live in a more politically divisive nation, there has to be some sort of protections for free speech and to allow people to have expression, political expression, particularly that is contrary to the ruling party in the United States, because those expressions are part of the marketplace of ideas, whether you agree with them or you don't. Now, I haven't read the law, so I don't know if there are limitations to it, but you certainly wouldn't want to create a forum for, dangerous and radical ideas that would be damaging to our country. And I guess that's what the Democrats think Republican ideas are, right?
Yeah. Well, they've actually gone to the Supreme Court to try to get an injunction to stop this law already. So the thing is, the social media sites are really trying to shut this down. Rick, what are your thoughts about social media sites' ability to shut down people because of speech?
Well, let me just share my personal experience. You wouldn't think I'd get banned because I'm liberal and that lines up with a lot of social media. But I had to leave YouTube and go to Rumble. 5 years ago, just after Trump got elected, my best friend is a painter, and I've been an art model for a long time, and he's all Trumpy, and I'm very liberal. And when I work for him, we'd get in an argument. I thought it would be fun to turn that into a YouTube show where a naked guy is arguing with an artist about politics. Though we decided I should keep pants. I had pants on. But for 5 years, we argued. And at the beginning, we had, reasonably honest differences of opinion, where, is Trump a Russian dupe or not, a Russian spy or not? Are trans people real, or is it a mental disease? And we each defend our point of view. But by, the end of by 2021, I felt like my Trumpy buddy was getting dragged into all these, just into a lot of BS, like hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, and like the election, the stolen election stuff. And we continued to talk about that on YouTube until YouTube said, nope, we're giving you a strike. You get 3 strikes and your entire channel, 5 years of shows, is wiped out. But I wrote back saying, yeah, we were discussing these BS ideas, all these election fraud things, but I'm debunking them. And they said, no, doesn't count. So we, just to stop my channel from being wiped out, we moved to Rumble, though we haven't done a show lately because just the whole thing makes me kind of sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see. Dr. Danko, what are your thoughts about this, since you used to teach marketing, about if we say certain things that they can just shut us down? And they have, by the way. So I've experienced what Rick has said, the 3 strikes you're out. They shut our entire network down by YouTube and also Facebook. And now Texas has created a law that says, well, you just can't do that. And all we were doing was discussing COVID. What are your thoughts on this?
But I wonder what effect a state law would have, on a social media that is worldwide.
Good question.
I mean, so that's one key issue. But, like anything, you talk about how many views are you going to get? How many customers do we get? Well, it all depends. It's not about legislating what you can see and not see. It's about, if you put it out there and you have a crowd that's going to follow you, more power to you. I mean, I that's called the exchange of ideas. It's
exactly.
It's the way that academia is supposed to work anyway. Why not, as a society, have a free discussion? So, but my biggest question is about a state law being able to prohibit anything. That's the real issue.
Here's the way I understand the state law, Dr. Danko. What they're doing is they're saying that the individual can now sue the broadcast organization, let's say Facebook or YouTube, who've shut us down. We can now maintain a lawsuit against them, where before Section 230 stops it. So I think you're going to also find some legal issues, because Section 230 is a federal law. Texas is a state law. But what they're doing is they're allowing you to institute a lawsuit in the state of Texas if you get shut down because of social media. Our social media expert has arrived, Kim Calhoun, so you can let us know when we're going to be suing people.
Are you going to? So, Nick, how many times have you been put into Facebook jail? So let's talk about that.
I have a residence right now in Facebook jail.
He has his own Facebook attorney.
I'm going to.
That's what he said. He's hiring his own Facebook attorney because he's just going to have that much time. And he's brought into jail and all of that. So.
Let's create one more law to give attorneys more job security, right? Okay, now we're putting out there, you can do this and you can sue for this and you can sue for that. And we made it a law. Way to go, attorneys. You just created more job security for you, or where else but in Texas, right? Because Texas really is its own country, as we all know. It's not its state. Now, actually, the states are each their own country nowadays, because we're allowing them to each create their own laws on a lot of what I consider unconstitutional laws. But let's talk about this. What is freedom of speech? And then what is the means to restrict it? Where is there a universal standard to protect people's rights, but also protect people from harassment and being bullied or misinformation? There might be a lot of misinformation out there, misleading, misguiding. So where's the boundaries for that? And do we use lawsuits to create those boundaries? I think that there needs to become, and I think David K. Johnson used to agree with me, we need to start establishing global standards. And without those global standards, then you're going to create all of these lawsuits. And lawsuits aren't free, Nick. You know that. Recently I was submitted an invoice that if I wanted to do a lawsuit, it was going to cost $20,000. Now, who on their desk account have $20,000 to go and just file a lawsuit because Facebook took you down for saying a political whatever? So who makes these rules up is, Nick, maybe you can answer. Hi, Adam.
Kim, are there, but Kim, and I'd love to hear Adam's thoughts on this as well. Because one person I hear
Seems we have an echo.
Yeah, we do have an echo.
You're not supposed to be up higher in a crowded theater because that can cause a trampling. And I definitely have heard that. Even when I've done conversations around security around buildings and all of that.
Mark, it looks like you have an echo. Who's whispering? Let's see if we can bring Adam. Let's see if he's created a lot of problems since he's been here. Go ahead, Adam. You're still shut down.
It is.
I guess this free speech is eliminated.
Poor guy.
Where the echoes coming? Okay. Hello? Okay, the echo seems to have gone away. I think Adam's got some technical difficulty. Okay. This is the way it's supposed to work. Hello?
Yeah, they don't like what we're saying, evidently.
We're talking free speech, and rather than shut it down, regardless of speech. Let's see if I can get them on. Adam, we can't hear you. All we hear is an echo, and it goes over and over again. I don't even know how to run our system. You know. Wow. Who's bringing the echo? Hope it's not me. I'm gonna move this.
You still can't hear me?
Yeah.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God. I don't know what happened. I'm so sorry about that. So you want my thoughts on the law? Okay, well, a few things. Number one, social media is typically not a state actor, so the law is probably unconstitutional on its face. However, there is an argument that can be made that the law, that social media has become a state actor because it's working so closely with the government, particularly the White House, to censor speech. But regardless of the constitutionality or legality of it, the truth is that social media is censoring conservative voices left and right. You see it on Twitter, you see it on Facebook. It's run by left-wing people who are trying to censor people on the basis of content and viewpoint, and that's wrong. So even though the First Amendment might not compel them to not discriminate because they're not state actors, what they're doing is wrong because they are in fact disseminating misinformation and disinformation by skewing the narrative in favor of liberal voices. And that's wrong, it's anti-democratic, and if it were me, I would hold that the law is probably unconstitutional, but the underlying purpose, which is to create a marketplace of ideas, is one we should all aspire to.
We should talk about the crux of why anybody would want to shut down certain kinds of speech, and that kind of lies in the mass shooting over the weekend, where a dumb, crazy 18-year-old kid got radicalized by replacement theory, which I understand, and somebody can correct me if I have it wrong. Replacement theory is if we don't let white people stay in charge, then brown people and Jews will start squeezing out white people. And this kid shoots 13 people, kills 10 of them, almost all of them black people. And the idea is that he heard the wrong stuff in the media he listened to, and it overwhelmed his stupid brain and helped make him a mass murderer.
But at what point? Hopefully, okay.
Can't hear you, Nick.
You're
right.
You're muted.
Okay. What I'm saying is the media never addressed mental illness on this particular individual. The politician, Joe Biden, never addressed mental illness. Yet to me, this person really was suffering from mental illness, if you think about it.
Well, yeah, that's why there's a real problem here. You cannot equate information on social media as a causal factor in this kind of violence. What's really at issue here is probably mental illness and a host of other factors. But what's at issue when social media is intentionally, by design or in effect, discriminating against conservative voices is that they're depriving people of diversity of viewpoints in a marketplace of ideas, precisely what the First Amendment and democracy demands so that people can make informed choices. Now, like I said, social media is not a state actor, although you could make an argument that it is, and that's why the law is unconstitutional. But the purpose underlying the law is a good one that everyone should aspire to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you hear that?
Oh, yeah. The thing is, we're afraid to talk because we have this reverb going on, and I don't know where it's coming from. You know?
Well, I know that Mark
I think
agrees
it's
with
when we
me.
get more than 7 people or 6 people, so it could be that kind of concept that goes on. I've seen that sometimes. So I think everybody goes maybe on mute, except for those that are talking. And that might be other issue. I've seen that happen sometimes. It's a quick policy thing that we might try.
Okay.
Well, if you guys are all having problems, and I'm the only one who can be heard, I'll start talking about Roe versus Wade. And see, here's the thing. No, I'm just kidding. Just joking.
I actually would like to hear your opinion on Roe versus Wade. Yeah, so it's playing on whatever.
Roe versus Wade should be overturned. It was a terrible decision. The decision about abortion should be returned to the people. I'm pro-choice, but as a matter of constitutional law, it was a terrible decision. One of the worst, probably as bad as Korematsu and Plessy.
And people that don't know Korematsu, Korematsu versus the United States, explain to them Korematsu. We're all explaining Korematsu.
Go ahead, Nick.
Korematsu is the Japanese internment case.
Yeah.
They actually took the Japanese and they heard them once World War II broke out because they're afraid the Japanese would join the side of the Japan. So they got rid of it, But anyway, we still have this reserve. I'm not sure how to get rid of it.
Okay, let's see. It's loud, but not reverbing.
Well, actually, Adam doesn't reverb, everybody else does. Go on, Rick. Let's see if you reverb.
Okay.
We can't
Adam?
hear what?
Adam's arguing Roe was a bad rule.
Correct.
But what about the draft ruling from Alito? Was Thomas Alito seemed to be not great either. Is that normal for a draft ruling, and do they clean up their logic in the 2-3 months before the final ruling?
Yes, that's a great question. And yes, they do. The first draft is circulated among the justices. And then the other justices in the majority will provide comments, which leads to edits, and then they will circulate the dissents. And typically in that process, the opinion gets changed somewhat, particularly the reasoning. But the core of Alito's decision is right, which is fundamental rights have to be either based on the Constitution's text, number one, or number two, inferable reasonably from the Constitution's text, or number three, deeply rooted in our nation's tradition and history. Roe versus Wade does not meet any of those criteria. And in fact, Roe versus Wade was based on Griswold versus Connecticut, which held that certain unenumerated rights exist in these invisible penumbras that, while not in the Constitution, help to give the Constitution life and substance, essentially meaning judges can do whatever the hell they want to do when they want to do it. And Roe, on that basis, created an unenumerated right to privacy that you can't find anywhere in the Constitution, that's not inferable, and that's not deeply rooted in the nation's history and tradition. It is probably the worst decision of the 20th century, and it should be overruled. And this is coming from someone who's pro-choice. So,
is Griswold the contraception decision?
That's correct, yes.
The married couple in the privacy of their house can use a rubber or something.
Silly?
Okay.
the law in Griswold was very, very silly, but the law was not unconstitutional. And what the Supreme Court should have done is upheld that law, and then the people of Connecticut should have voted out their representatives. That's democracy. What the court did was create rights that are nowhere to be found in the Constitution, and that's anti-democratic.
Agree.
So whether you're pro-choice or not, this law should have never existed. I guess I'm cut off.
Oh, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay. So whether you are pro-choice or not, this law really should have never existed. They need to just let this situation of women make their own choices with their doctors. I really despise this idea of leaving it to the states individually, and then saying whether a woman can or cannot leave the state given her medical condition and do what she wants to do in another state. I think all of this is very unconstitutional, very stupid. You're going to cause so much more damage out there playing these political games instead of doing what's just humanly right. And that's just leave things alone that are not your business. And it's no one's business when a woman is pregnant. It's her business. Her business. If she's married, then perhaps it's both of their business. But that is her. That is her mental state. That is her medical and health state of being. It has nothing to do with the law. It should have nothing to do with anyone else saying what she can and cannot do or should do. And people need to butt out. I don't care what your religion says. Religion is not about law. That's why we started the United States. Okay. Your religion should not be my law. And pro-life or not, I believe in a child should be born. But I also believe that if we're going to force someone to do that, then you better put up the funding and a place to care for that child. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of abused children that are beaten daily until they are dead, which I read about all the time. Where are the pro-lifers for that child after they are born? And I know that's not what this show's about. Sorry, but you just opened up a wound here. And I just want to throw that out there, that if you're going to be pro-life and force women to have babies, then somebody needs to take care of those babies. Where's the pro-lifer for that baby after it's born? They're nowhere to be found. Nowhere. So quite honestly, I think all of that was unconstitutional, a means to control women. It's still becoming a means to control women. I think people just need to butt out of people's medical care and let that be between them and their doctor. And if they want to, the person who helped them get pregnant. That's it. Leave it alone. People need to stay out of other people's business.
Well, how can we argue with that? But what we can argue with is it looks like there's a big movement towards state law being overriding federal law, or at least federal law ignoring whatever the states are doing. Now, maybe that works, maybe it doesn't, but this is the latest one. Texas social media cannot shut down free speech. It looks like we're also seeing this in abortion, where it's going to be up to the states to regulate and make the laws regarding abortion. So, Adam, are you a proponent then that the states really are going to be the legislative body of the United States of America? What are your thoughts on that?
With regard to abortion?
With regard to that, and also looks like speech.
Yes. Abortion is nowhere to be found in the Constitution. It cannot be inferred from the language of the Constitution. It is not deeply rooted in our nation's history and tradition. Thus, there is no basis as a matter of constitutional law for the Supreme Court to create this right and deprive people from deciding this issue democratically in each state. That's what democracy is. What the court did in Roe was what one justice called the raw exercise of judicial power. Okay? Roe should be returned to the states. And at that point, I will stand with Kimberly and lobby for legislation that protects a woman's right to have an abortion at certain points of a pregnancy. But I will not countenance manipulating the Constitution by 9 unelected justices to find a right that doesn't exist, that never existed, and that cannot be considered legitimate constitutional law. Samuel Alito is right. Roe should be overturned. Casey should be overturned. and we should be giving power back to the people, not the philosopher kings on the court.
Okay, go on.
Should we talk about the deeply rooted nature of abortion, in that people have been doing abortions for thousands of years, and for much of that time in many places, the criterion was quickening, whether you could feel the baby moving, at around 24 weeks. So, even the Catholic Church was, for much of its existence, pretty okay with early abortion. So, when you talk deeply rooted, the life begins at conception thing seems to be less deeply rooted than the quickening criterion.
One of the things that is interesting about the Roe argument is the dissenting opinion by Rehnquist basically stated, well, if you follow the equal protection argument, who is the more insular minority, the unborn fetus or the mother? That's an interesting question, because the more insular, unrepresented party in between the two is the unborn fetus. And if so, Roe probably was wrongly decided ab initio, which created this whole thing. I mean, Justice Douglas's penumbra of the Constitution argument was never found or rooted in the Constitution, as Adam has said. It's a fiction, and it's a fiction that was created to create a result. And today, even Roe wouldn't agree with Roe. So, it's interesting that we've come full circle with respect to this issue. And let's just hope that common sense prevails. Ultimately, I think it will, because of Kimberly's concerns. I think there is a balance of things. There are some really radical proposals out there in states like California that'll let the pregnancy be terminated up until the time the child is born, which is totally and absolutely radical and is murder. So, I don't know if you use the quickening criteria, which has been proposed, or which, by the way, the viability issue, which was raised in Roe, again, because of technology, has lengthened out, because viability is now at a much earlier period in the gestation period than it was. And so, it's interesting to see this question. I think it is time to review it. And I think the justices need to address it, because we do believe in a constitutional theory of democracy. And, the Constitution is what the Constitution is, no matter what your personal arguments are about the efficacy or the morality of abortion.
Yeah, and shouldn't really, since this is a state law decision, not a Supreme Court decision, at least that's what the Supreme Court's saying, why are protesters in front of the Supreme Court? Shouldn't they be in front of the state legislatures? Because they're the ones who are going to be making the decision, not the Supreme Court. I see all these people, you're taking away my rights, blah, blah, blah. Wait a minute. They're turning the rights over to the states. So the correct person to protest will be the states. Yes, Kim.
Divide and conquer. Okay. They're going to make it so difficult for them to go to each state, Nick. It was just like when you and I had to go to every PBS station and knock on the door and say, hey, take our TV show as a national TV show. You divide and conquer this way. I don't think this should be a law in state. I don't think it should be a law federally. I don't think it's anyone's darn business what a woman does between her and her doctor. I think this is a HIPAA violation big time. I think people need to worry about themselves. And if you believe in God, then you just give it to God to judge. But don't judge these people and don't judge these women for making the decisions they believe is in their best interest. Okay, go take a look at all the children that are abused every day before you sit there and judge a woman for taking decisions in her own hands of what she can and cannot handle. And by the way, pro-lifers, get off your butts and get out there and do some pro-life work with the babies you were pushing us to have. Okay. So I don't believe in abortion. For me, I don't. But if a woman is not mentally or physically capable to feel like she can do it, then let that be between her, her doctor, and her God. Okay. But keep all of this religion stuff. If that's your faith, fine. Go take care of other people in your church and help take care of these people. But leave this alone. When women get pregnant, their hormones are all messed up. They have a lot of things going on in their head. Things go crazy. I know. I was pregnant once. And I almost took a pro-lifer off the stand because he was trying to push me into saying, go get, if a woman wants to do what she wants to do, let her do it. If the baby's near full term, again, that's none of your business. Okay. Let that be between the doctor and the mother.
But Kimberly, you're forgetting about the rights of the child. You're forgetting about the unprotected insular minority.
No, I'm not.
The life of the child. Oh, yeah, you are.
No, I'm not.
What you're doing is
you forgot about the rights of the child when you sit here and don't take care of that child after you pushed it to be born and it's being abused, not fed,
Kimberly,
and dying.
When it comes to
what pro-life is that? I don't call you guys pro-lifers. I call you bullies.
The issue is constitutional law. It doesn't matter what our particular moral bent is.
Exactly.
But it's only constitutional when the court says it is, right? So it's not exactly. It does. So we can.
They make mistakes.
We can. Well, they did make mistakes 50 years ago. Yeah, that's right.
They make mistakes every day.
Here's the thing, though.
30 million babies murdered in the United States since Roe v. Wade, or maybe more.
Well, I wish you guys would get more involved with other murders and abused women and be pro-life on that as much as you are this.
Yeah, right.
That's how I've done.
Maybe mention that, super late term abortions, third trimester abortions there are laws designed to keep those still legal, California, New York, but those laws are not designed to, a lady can have a bad hair day and decide to abort her 8.5 month fetus. They're designed so that, if you've got twins and one of them's stillborn, you can get the stillborn twin out of the womb. Or if you're 7 months in and you got a stillborn kid or a kid who's anencephalic, basically has zero brain, they're designed to protect doctors and for the most part, and women when you have catastrophic things go wrong with the pregnancy.
Sure, that'd be okay.
That's largely what happens.
Yeah, Bill.
Yeah. Today's Wall Street Journal. I'm in New York. Here's a full-page ad that, look, New York is the abortion mecca, as is California. Your business should be here too, because, this is what we do. Turn it into an economic issue.
That's what I do.
That's what this state is coming down to, as is California. Make it an economic issue. Yeah, we'd love to have you. You have like-minded people who believe in this particular line of thinking.
Yeah, right.
Amazon has stated that if you live in a state where you can't get an abortion, and you're an Amazon employee, they will give you a stipend up to $4,000 to travel to a state where you can get an abortion.
Yes, Adam.
Constitutional right to commit suicide. You do not have a fundamental constitutional right to do illegal drugs. You don't have a fundamental constitutional right to have sex with one of your parents. The reason, quite obviously, is because the state has obvious interests in preventing that. That's the problem with holding that there's a fundamental right to privacy or bodily autonomy. It's too broadly characterized. It can encompass absolutely anything. So then you have to look at the specific right, the right to abortion. Is it in the Constitution? No. Is it inferable? No. Is it rooted in tradition? No. And when we talk about a woman having a right to her own body, I'm sorry. You have a third party here. That third party is the unborn child. So the bodily autonomy argument, not only is it not a fundamental right, but as a matter of policy, it really rings hollow. Because unlike any other area of healthcare, you are dealing here with the termination of a life. And for that reason, personally, I am pro-life. Now, I'm pro-choice as a matter of policy. I would leave that decision to the woman. But the argument that it's a fundamental right or that it's a purely healthcare decision is without merit.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Rick.
Yeah, well, another thing we can discuss is that since Roe and even before Roe, conservatives have found that abortion is a lever that gets conservatives to the polls. So abortion has a political importance beyond the issue of abortion itself, because it's such a motivating factor in conservative politics, which further kind of muddies the issue.
But argumentatively, isn't this for both sides? In other words, abortion gets money for both sides. In other words, the Democrats say you're taking away my right to choose. The Republicans are you killing babies. So both of them, they ask for money because it's a both side issue, Rick. So it's something that is very polarizing, but also something that both the Republican and Democrats can use to raise money off of.
Well, we're about to see whether it's motivating for Democrats, because the Democrats are statistically supposed to get shellacked in November, lose the Senate, lose the House. And will this draft ruling and maybe the official ruling in June get Democrats to the polls? Democrats, I think the cliche is herding cats. They're hard to get unified compared to the Republicans. So
I'm going to share a little bit of wisdom here. I believe that if everyone butts their nose out of this and just let women make their own choices, there will be less abortions. You provide more education, okay? And instead of spending all your money being anti-abortion, spend all your money helping children who are with mothers who've decided to carry their baby all the way through and need help. If you're a real pro-lifer, that's what you will do. You will help provide a quality of life for that child. But I guarantee you, if you just kind of wipe the slate clean and go away and let women make their own choices, odds are we're going to make good choices for our own selves. You're going to have less of these full-term abortions. There'll be more on a as-needed basis. But when you make it an issue like this, it's not good. I think people just need to go back to leaving this being a medical decision between a woman and her doctor, maybe if she wants her family. But HIPAA, this is totally HIPAA violation. But I really believe that it shouldn't be a political issue, which it is. Rick is 100% right. It's all about, pulling sides and money. But take all your money and instead of putting it into anti-abortion, put it into facilities for women who need, you want them to carry their baby all the way through. Give them the help that they need. Give them the support that they need. Love and care. Give them the things that the baby's going to need. Okay. But when you cause all this tension, you're causing a lot of the wrong kind of attention. And I'll guarantee you there'll be less abortions. I really do, because women will start making better choices when they're given better options. And right now you're giving them a don't you do this option. And you know what? I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I'm kind of like, don't tell me what to do, so kind of just back off. Just the laws need to go away. I agree with Adam. This should have never been a law to begin with, but it just needs to go away. And the Supreme Court and the state laws, they all need to say, you know what? It's your body. It's between you and your doctor. And oh, by the way, if you decide to carry this child full term and you don't have any support and help, we will help you. That's what needs to happen.
Yeah, Adam.
Well, if you want to talk about all the tension and divisiveness, it's not Justice Alito's opinion that's causing it. It's Roe. Roe was the worst decision, perhaps, of the 20th century. And quite frankly, Obergefell versus Hodges wasn't much better. At the time that Obergefell was decided, states were slowly adopting laws prohibiting bans on same-sex marriage, and that's a good thing in my view. It was proceeding through the democratic process through the people as it should. But the court hijacked that, and in a 5-4 decision held that the 14th Amendment somehow protects the right to same-sex marriage. Roe had the same problem. They took it out of the democratic process with a decision that was based on reasoning so poor that it created this backlash. And what the court is doing now is righting the ship, as it should. Because at the end of the day, the people should decide this, not philosopher kings, and it should be decided democratically, not by 9 unelected and life tenure judges.
Okay, well, what about the Texas law that just got passed?
It's unconstitutional because, as the law stands now, social media is not a state actor. So by by requiring social media to accommodate on its private platforms particular forms of speech, it violates social media's First Amendment rights. However, like I said before, the purpose underlying the law is a good one as a matter of policy. We should be encouraging social media to welcome all ideas and all viewpoints. Currently, that's not happening. There is a discernible bias against conservatives. It's wrong, it's anti-democratic, and it disrupts the very marketplace of ideas that's essential to democracy and informed decision-making.
So what you're saying is that social media can continue to shut down, which they do on occasion.
Yes.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, Rick.
We keep talking about democratic decisions, but there have been a couple recent Supreme Court decisions that are themselves kind of anti-democratic. Citizens United, which, said companies, money is speech, and throwing out the Voting Rights Act, which has led to a bunch of anti-democratic legislation across a bunch of states. So what about, protecting democracy itself so we can get legitimate decisions about these issues? The latest survey about abortion is in Florida is unfortunately from 2014 that I could find, where 56% of people support abortion rights and 39% do not. But that's not what's happening in Florida.
Just a minute, Adam. I'll get you over.
Well, Rick, you make a great point. Citizens United was a terrible decision. What should have happened is the court should have upheld the statute in Citizens United and in McCutcheon versus FEC, thereby promoting more equal participation in democracy, and never got involved in Roe, in abortion, and in other unenumerated rights cases. The court did it backwards. It invalidated the statute in Citizens United, therefore allowing money to corrupt the democratic process, and then in cases like Roe, usurped the democratic process by getting involved. It should have never gotten involved, and it should have allowed that statute to stand so that democracy and participation in democracy would have been strengthened. So I agree completely with you.
One more thing I found out over the weekend. I was, like everybody has their favorite and unfavorite SCOTUS justices. So I was looking to see where our current justices rank on the list of like worst justices ever. And somebody did a March Madness bracket there have been 115 justices in the history of the court, and they put the 32 worst in a bracket. And people who kind of know about this stuff voted. But what I found out from the whole deal is that the Supreme Court has always had a bunch of a-holes on it, that it's almost impossible to find a court that isn't like at least 1/3 jerks.
I'll let Adam respond to that since I'm licensed before the Supreme Court. I'll elect to defer.
Well, I'll just say briefly, I agree that there's some very elitist Supreme Court justices, but when you want to talk about the best Supreme Court justices, I'm going to start and I'm going to end with Antonin Scalia. He was the best justice in the history of the U.S. Supreme, or among the best justices in the history of the Supreme Court, because he embraced originalism, because he had a humility to his judging that respected democracy and federalism, and because he reached outcomes he didn't like often under the Fourth Amendment, under the First Amendment in Texas versus Johnson, for example. He realized that the process of making decisions is more important than the outcomes that you get, and that when you focus on intellectual honesty in the process and adhere to the text, you respect democracy and you create an environment where law can be made by the people from the bottom up and not the top down.
I don't agree politically with Scalia, but there's a lot of evidence that he was not an a-hole. He had a sense of humor. He had warm relationships with the liberals on the bench. So, he maybe wasn't a jerk, even though I disagree with him.
Good comment. Yes, Adam, any other thoughts on Antonin Scalia?
He was a very good man. His relationship with Ruth Bader Ginsburg shows you that you can disagree strongly with someone and still maintain an amazing friendship. And that's what's missing in our country today, is a respect for diversity and diverse opinions, and also an understanding that at the end of the day, we're all pretty much the same.
Okay. So just so I'm clear, though, it sounds to me that the Texas law isn't going to be upheld by the Supreme Court. And that means that Facebook and YouTube can take us off anytime they want, which they've done in the past. And we can look, and LinkedIn also has banned us for something. I forgot what we did. I know what it was. Mark Lee had too many views, believe it or not. On that World's Worth present, we had 455,000. I got a notice, well, we're taking you off. Why? You have too many views. Okay. So apparently they can take us off because you got too many people watching it. Yeah, go on.
I agree with all of you on that, Stan. But Nick, again, let's talk about the law. They can't take away your right to sue before you have a right to sue. So a law that says you can sue is pretty stupid to me. You can go sue them anytime you want for taking you down. You don't have to have a law that says you have a right to sue. Am I right?
Well, the thing is, there's this weird Section 230 that exempts social media companies from being sued for content that's being shown through social media, or apparently not being shown through social media. So Texas is saying, well, we're talking about Roe versus Wade. We're talking about their law that social media can actually shut us down for just discussing it. Because
so if I want to sue social media, even though they're not located in Texas, I can go to Texas if this law passes and sue them from Texas.
Quite possibly, yeah. Texas courts will entertain
Or do I have to live in Texas in order to do that? I mean, all of this is
I've not read the Texas statute. I'm not licensed to practice in Texas. All I know is it's created such problems that social media has gone to the Supreme Court already to try to get it shut down. In other words, they want to get the Texas law, an injunction against the Texas law. Well, according to Adam, it sounds to me that they can get that injunction. Oh, would that be correct, Adam? They should be. The Supreme Court should get an injunction against the Texas law. And I'll have to unmute you because of my process.
In my view, yes. Dan, what do you think?
I think you're right. I think. Although there, like you said, there is an argument that they could be deemed as a state actor. The scope of 230 was intended to protect the social media groups from opinions rendered therein, and so what that can't be turned around and used as license to then ban speech, because it violates the purpose of their exemption. So you may have an argument under federal law that Section 230 is being violated by the social media companies because they're choosing to silence speech when the Congress gave them a protection for that very purpose. And so what gives them the right to do that? There's supposed to be a marketplace of ideas. That's why Section 230, and indeed it creates a violation of individual rights under federal law because people are being denied access to that media source under Section 230 when it was permitted to protect them too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that has been a big problem that we've seen in media, at least in the United States, that 5 companies own 90% of all media in the United States. But some of these companies that try to push their way through economically, like Quibi and CNN Plus, both had their rears handed to them. Quibi lost over $1 billion, and CNN Plus went out of business after putting in, you'll love this, $300 million into their network, CNN Plus. It only had 10,000 views, and they folded because they didn't have enough views. We have 50,000 views, but I can promise you we have not spent $300 million at this point in time. So with that, we're going to continue our growth pattern on the Pod TV network. You can obviously, a lot of people are viewing this on Roku right now, the Roku channel and Vimeo. And with that, we're going to call it a day here. Sorry about the technical difficulties. We can blame that on Adam, but because there's no one else to blame it on right now. But other than that, everything went well. We'll see you next week on the media. Take care and have a good day. Bye.